In the name of Allah, the entirely merciful, the especially merciful. O you who wraps himself in clothing.
The Holy Prophet is addressed in this verse with reference to a particular style of wrapping himself in his clothes. The first event of this kind occurred when the Holy Prophet received first revelation in the cave of Hira. Being his first experience, he felt it very hard and was caught by a shivery cold, and once he reached home, he asked his blessed wife Khadijah, may Allah be pleased with him, to wrap him in a blanket, which she did. Some narrations have reported another event, when the Holy Prophet was accused by the pagans of Mecca of being a magician who separated between friends. He felt aggrieved and wrapped himself in his clothes out of grief. Addressing him with reference to these events is a loving style adopted by Allah Ta'ala to console him. Muhammad Taqi Usmani, Commentary. O you wrapped up in clothes, Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 1. The word Muzammil literally means one wrapped up in clothes, and its near synonym Mudaththir comes in the next surah. The Holy Prophet is addressed in this verse with reference to a particular style of wrapping himself in his clothes. The first event of this kind occurred when the Holy Prophet received first revelation in the cave of Hira. Being his first experience, he felt it very hard, and was caught by a shivery cold. And once he reached home, he asked his blessed wife Khadijah, may Allah be pleased with him, to wrap him in a blanket, which she did. A detailed account of this event is reported by Bukhari in the very first chapter of his book. Then the revelation stopped for some time. Speaking of this temporary break in the revelation term, this Fatratul Wahy, Sayyidina Jabir, may Allah be pleased with him, reports that the Messenger of Allah said in his narrative, whilst I was walking along, I heard a voice from heaven, and I raised up my eyes. Lo! The angel that had appeared to me in Hira was sitting on a chair between heaven and earth, and I was struck with awe on account of him, and returned home and said, wrap me up, Zamluni, Zamluni. Then Allah revealed the first 5 verses of Surah Al-Mukhtasar, chapter 74, Bukhari and Muslim. According to this narrative, the Holy Prophet is affectionately addressed as O you, enveloped in a mantle, whereas in this surah, he is addressed as O you, wrapped up in clothes. Both forms of address are used affectionately and endearingly to console him. The latter title of address, Muzammil, as it appears in this surah, could probably be connected to another incident referred to in the footnote, but it, nonetheless, shows deep love and affection for the Holy Prophet. Role Ma'ani. Having addressed him with the special title, the Holy Prophet is told in the following verses that praying to Allah in the stillness of night, Salat Tahajjud, will prepare him for the heavy task entrusted to him. Some details of the night prayer have also been set out.
Arise to pray the night, except for a little.
Injunctions pertaining to Salat Tahajjud and its abrogation. Reading into the titles Muzammil and Mudaththir, a consensus of scholarly opinion assigns the revelation of this surah to the earliest period, when the 5 daily prayers had not become obligatory. They were prescribed on the night of Holy Prophet's ascent to heavens. Mi'raj. Imam Baghal, may Allah have mercy on him, says on the basis of a hadith reported by Sayyida Aisha Siddiqah, may Allah be pleased with him and others, that night prayer was compulsory for the Holy Prophet and the entire Muslim community until the 5 prayers were not prescribed. This verse not only prescribes the night prayer, but it also prescribes to stand up in prayer from at least 1/4 of the night, because the verse under comment basically commanded to stand up all night to pray except a little portion of it. Imam Badhawi, may Allah have mercy on him, says, on the basis of narration of a hadith, that the Holy Prophet and the noble companions, may Allah be pleased with him, in compliance with this command, spent the major portion of the night in tahajjud, so much so that their feet would swell, and this exertion caused hardship and difficulty to them. This situation continued for a year. After that, towards the end of the surah, the following injunction was revealed, therefore recite as much of it as is easy. Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 20. It repealed the obligation of staying up for a long time, and granted them concession and permission to stay up for prayer as much as they could easily manage. This is transmitted by Abu Dawud and Nasai on the authority of Sayyida Aisha, may Allah be pleased with him. Sayyidina Ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with him, says that when the 5 prescribed prayers became obligatory on the night of Mi'raj, the obligatory nature of tahajjud was abrogated. It was, however, retained as sunnah, because the Holy Prophet performed it most regularly. Most of the blessed companions, may Allah be pleased with him, were regular with their tahajjud as well. Majari, let us now analyze the wordings of the verses stand at night for prayer, except a little. Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 2. The word al-layl with the definite article al connotes the entire night, signifying that he should stay up the whole night for prayer except a little portion of it. As the word little is indefinite, the verse further clarifies half of it, or make it a little less, 3, or make it a little more. Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 4. This is explicative of the exception, except a little. A question may be raised here that a little cannot be half. The answer is that the earlier portion of the night is spent in the prayer at Maghrib and Isha. Half then refers to the half of the rest of the night. Its total in relation to the whole night amounts to a little. The verse permits to reduce it a little less than half, and it also permits to add to it a little more than half. Thus it was compulsory to stay up at least for a little over 1/4 of a night for prayer.
Half of it, or subtract from it a little.
See Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 2 for the Tafsir.
Or add to it, and recite the Quran with measured recitation.
And recite the Quran clearly with tartil, in a distinct and measured tone. Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 4. The word tartil, according to Imam Raghib as explicated in Al-Mufradat, originally means to put together and arrange well the component parts of a word in speech, and make it distinct. The purport of the verse is to say that the Quran must not be recited in haste, but in a leisurely manner, distinctly, deliberately, and in well-measured tone. At the same time, it is necessary to reflect on its meaning and message. Majari. The clause where radil is grammatically conjoined to kunolail, and signifies what is required to be done in tahajjud prayer. Although it comprises many components like tasbih, ruku bowing, sujud, prostration, and so on, the verse indicates that the basic component of prayer is recitation of the Quran. The authentic traditions bear testimony to the fact that the tahajjud prayer of the Holy Prophet used to be prolonged very much. The noble companions and their pupils followed the same pattern. Ruling 1. The verse under comment clarifies that the recitation of the Quran is required to be with tartil distinct recitation in well-measured tone. The Holy Prophet's recitation fulfilled the requirements of tartil. Some people inquired from Sayyidah Salama, may Allah be pleased with him, about the Holy Prophet's recitation of Quran and night prayers. She emulated his recitation, in which every single letter was clear and distinct. For Midhi, Abu Dawud nasal is quoted by Majari. Ruling 2. Tartil includes slow rhythmic recitation and beautification of the voice while reciting. Sayyidina Abu Hurairah, may Allah be pleased with him, narrates that the Messenger of Allah said, Allah does not listen to any recitation as much as he listens to the recitation of a prophet who recites with a beautiful voice. Majari. Sayyidina al-Kema, may Allah be pleased with him, saw a person reciting with a beautiful voice, and he exclaimed, he has recited the Quran with tartil, may my parents be sacrificed to him. Qaribai. In short, tartil basically signifies that the letters in the words must be pronounced clearly and distinctly, that will help understanding the Quran and paying due care to its meaning. Hassan al-Basri, may Allah have mercy on him, reports that Allah's messenger passed by a person who was reciting a verse of the Quran and weeping. He said to the people, have you heard of the command of Allah? And recite the Quran clearly with tartil, in a distinct and measured tone. Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 4. This is tartil which this person is doing. Qatupai.
Indeed, we will cast upon you a heavy word.
We are going to send down to you a weighty discourse. Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 5. The word dajjal means heavy, and the phrase weighty discourse refers to the Quran. Because the Quranic teachings of lawful and unlawful are permanently binding, and carrying them out is the weightiest task for human nature, except those for whom Allah makes it easier. According to oft-quoted hadith, whenever a revelation descended upon the Holy Prophet, he went into a trance and felt a peculiar sensation, so that even on an extremely cold day drops of sweat fell from his forehead, and he felt his body has become heavier. The Quranic revelation being a weighty discourse, his paroxysm was due to this sensation. If the Holy Prophet received revelation while he was on his riding animal, it would begin to move the bottom of its neck intensely. Bukhari and others. The verse under comment prescribes tahajjud prayer on man so that he may become accustomed to the difficulty of waking at night. This is a struggle against excessed sleep and comfort of the carnal self. This exercise will make it easier to abide by the injunctions contained in the weighty discourse, that is, the Holy Quran.
Indeed, the hours of the night are more effective for concurrence of heart and tongue, and more suitable for words.
Truly, rising by night for prayer of tahajjud is the most effective way to subdue one's self and to make speech more upright. Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 6. The word nashia, on the grammatical measure of afiyah, is an infinitive noun which signifies to rise by night for prayer. Sayyidah Aisha, may Allah be pleased with him, said that Nashiyatul Layl means to rise by night for night, prayer after sleeping. According to this definition, Nashiyatul Layl refers to tahajjud prayer. Furthermore, the word tahajjud itself literally means to sleep at night and then wake up to perform the prayer. Ibn Qaysan, may Allah have mercy on him, has said that prayer at the later part of the night is called Nashiyatul Layl. Ibn Zayd, may Allah have mercy on him, says that performing prayer at any part of the night is Nashiyatul Layl. Hasan al-Basri, may Allah have mercy on him, says that any prayer after the Isha prayer is Nashiyatul Layl. Ibn Abi Mulaika, may Allah be pleased with him, says that he asked Sayyidina Ibn Abbas and Ibn Zubayr about the meaning of Nashiyatul Layl. They replied as follows: the entire night is Nashia. Mashari, there is no conflict in these interpretations. The point is that the terms Nashia of the night and Qiyam of the night are general and may refer to any hour of night. Thus the two terms apply equally to performing night prayer in any part of the night, especially the one performed after Isha prayer, as explained by Sayyidina Hasan al-Basri. May Allah have mercy on him. However, the constant practice of the Holy Prophet, that of the overwhelming majority of the companions and their pupils, and that of the righteous predecessors of the Ummah, was that they performed this prayer in the later part of the night after waking from sleep, and therefore it is more virtuous, more meritorious, and attracts more blessings. Performing any nafil voluntary prayer after Isha prayer fulfills the sunnah requirement of Nashia of the night and Qiyam of the night, is the most effective way to subdue oneself and to make speech more upright. Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 6. The word watan, with the letter wa carrying fath equals a, is an infinitive which means to subdue or to suppress. Given this meaning, the sense is that this time of night helps one to suppress his evil desires and keep them under control. This meaning is adopted by Maulana Ashraf Ali Thanawi, may Allah have mercy on him, and the translation of the text is based on this interpretation. In another Qur'an version, however, the word is pronounced witan. It is an infinitive that means to conform. On another occasion in the Qur'an, we come across the following verse wherein a verb derived from this root is contained. The word in that verse is used in the same sense, thus, so that they may conform only to the number of what Allah has sanctified. Surah At-Tawbah, Ayah 37. Leading authorities on tafsir, like Ibn Zayd and Ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with him, have interpreted the word in the same sense here. Ibn Zayd, may Allah be pleased with him, said that getting up in the night for prayer is the most effective means of making the heart, eye, ear and tongue to mutually correspond and conform. Ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with him, said that the phrase means that during this time there is the closest degree of conformity and harmony between the ear and the heart. This is because there is no noise at the time of night, when most people are asleep, and one will not be disturbed as one is during the daytime. At night time, when the tongue recites the Qur'an, the ears will be conducive to listening to the recitation with due concentration, and the heart will be conducive to understanding and considering its meaning and message. And to make speech more upright, Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 6. The word aqwam means more upright. The verse signifies that the recitation of the Qur'an is more upright and concentrated, because during the night there are no noises and commotion to distract the heart or the mind. In sum, the purport of the verse is to put forward the wisdom underlying the injunction of the night, prayer for the common people. The preceding verse put forward its wisdom for the Holy Prophet. We are going to send down to you a weighty discourse. Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 5. The weighty discourse was concerned specifically with the Holy Prophet as it was revealed to him. But for common people, night prayer has two characteristics: one bringing harmony between the heart and the tongue, and two, peace of mind, making it easier to recite the Qur'an.
Indeed, for you by day is prolonged occupation.
Surely in daytime you have a lengthy work to do. Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 7. The word sab'an literally means to flow, walk, or move about, from which we also get the sense of swimming in the water, because when a swimmer swims in the water, he moves about in it freely without any obstruction. Here the word signifies long chain of engagements in the day, which refers to multifarious duties to be performed with alacrity, such as educating the people, preaching to them, reforming humanity, performing domestic chores, discharging social responsibilities, and moving about to many other tasks and obligations. The current verse explicates the third point of wisdom as to why night prayer was enjoined. This relates both to the Holy Prophet and the general body of the Muslim community. During the day, the Holy Prophet, as well as other people, have a long chain of engagements for which they disperse and move about as explained in the foregoing paragraph. As a result, it is difficult for them to concentrate on their worshipping activity. The night should be reserved for this purpose. A person should sleep according to his need and perform his night prayer as well. A special note. Jurists have said that the verse under comment confirms that scholars.
And remember the name of your Lord, and devote yourself to Him with complete devotion.
And remember the name of your Lord, and devote yourself to Him with exclusive devotion. Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 8. The word tabatul, literally, means to cut off oneself from entire creation, to focus attention solely on the Creator, to detach oneself from worldly things, and devote oneself exclusively and sincerely to the service of Allah. The sentence, and remember the name of your Lord. Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 8, is grammatically conjoined to the sentence, stand at night for prayer. Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 2, which enjoins upon the Holy Prophet to perform the night prayer, and incidentally his attention is drawn in the following verse to special devotional activities in the course of the day. Surely, in daytime, you have a lengthy work to do. Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 7, but the verse Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 8 enjoins a devotional activity, remembering Allah, that can be performed at any time of day or night. In fact, it can be performed at all times and under all circumstances. Since it is inconceivable that the Holy Prophet would never remember Allah, the purport of enjoining dhikr, remembrance of Allah, is to emphasize keeping to it consistently, in the sense that there should be no laxity in it. Mazar. This is possible only if remembering Allah is taken in its widest possible sense to include reciting His name with tongue, remembrance by heart, and also keeping one's body engaged in complying with the commands of Allah. A narration of Sayyidah Aisha Siddiqah reports the following: the Holy Prophet used to remember Allah at all times. This hadith is correct in terms of the wider concept of remembrance of Allah just explained above. Obviously, the Holy Prophet did not make dhikr by his tongue when answering the call of nature, as ahadith distinctly confirm this, but dhikr by heart is possible at all times. There are, however, two types of dhikr by heart. One, it may be done through imagined words. Two, by reflecting and pondering on the divine attributes of perfection. Sheikh Thanawi. The next injunction in this verse is, and devote yourself to Him with exclusive devotion. Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 8. In other words, the Holy Prophet is to detach himself from worldly things and devote himself exclusively and sincerely to Allah. The general import of the verse imparts the injunction that when worshipping Allah, no partners should be associated with Him, and the total worship and devotion should be solely for Him. In all his actions and movements, he should single out Allah for reliance. He should not take any creature as possessing the power of benefit and harm, or as possessing the power of granting wishes and solving problems. Sayyidina Ibn Zayd said that tabatul signifies to abandon the world and what is in it and focus attention on what is with Allah. Mashari. The tabatul which this verse enjoins is completely different from the concept and practice of monasticism which the Quran denounces elsewhere. Thus, as for monasticism, it was invented by them. Surah Al-Hadid, Ayah 27, and a hadith denounces it thus: there is no monasticism in Islam. Rabbaniya, or monasticism, in the technical language of Sharia, signifies to abandon the world and sever all ties, which involves the giving up of all pleasures and all lawful and pure things, believing that doing so is worship, and thinking that without avoiding them one would not be able to attain the good pleasure of Allah. It also means to sever human relationships in such a manner that human rights are not taken care of or they are violated. This verse enjoins a different type of tabatul, or severance of relationship. It means that one's relationship with human beings should not overpower his relationship with Allah, whether in terms of belief or in terms of practice. Such a detachment is not contradictory to any business relations or social contracts and transactions like marriage and family ties. In fact, they can be combined. Tabatul, in this sense, is a characteristic of all prophets, especially that of the Holy Prophet Muhammad. Their lives bear ample testimony to this type of tabatul, which the pious elders alternatively term as ikhlas, sincerity, majari. An important note. In a matter of Allah's remembrance and detachment from the world, the venerable Sufis, whether belonging to the earlier generation or later generation, have always been forward. They said that there are only two steps with which they are exerting their effort to cover the distance and conquer the path day and night. The first step is to detach themselves from the creation, and the second step is to reach Allah, i.e., their destination. The two steps are inseparable, in that where one is operational, the other must operate, and if one does not operate, the other will not operate either. The two steps have been stated as two conjoined sentences, thus, and remember the name of your Lord, and devote yourself to Him with exclusive devotion. Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 8. In this context, dhikr Allah refers to constant remembrance of Allah where there should be no failing, and at no time there should be forgetfulness. This maqam station in Sufi terminology is referred to as wusul ila Allah, reaching out to Allah. The first statement states the second step, and the second statement states the first step. Thus the statements state the order in reverse, probably because in practice tawakal, in the sense given above, is prior to wusul ila Allah, which is achieved after the operation of the former. The main object of a salik, the spiritual traveler, is to achieve the second step. Therefore the naturally occurring order has been changed and remembrance of Allah has been mentioned first. This also is meant to show the importance and virtue of remembrance of Allah. How well Sheikh Sa'di, may Allah have mercy on him, has versified the two steps. Worldly relationship is a barrier and brings no eternal benefit. When you abandon these relations, you will be the one who reaches out to Allah. Remembrance of Allah through repetition of His personal name. The verse under comment, whilst enjoining dhikrullah, remembrance of Allah, has referred to it as remembrance of the name of Allah by saying, and remember the name of your Lord, Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 8, and not do remember your Lord. This indicates that the repetition of Allah's personal name Allah is also desired and required form of dhikr and worship. Maishari. Some scholars say that such repetition of His personal name is an innovation, bid'ah, but this opinion is not correct, and Allah knows best.
He is the Lord of the East and the West. There is no deity except Him, so take Him as disposer of your affairs.
He is the Lord of the East and the West. There is no God but He, so take Him for your guardian. Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 9. The word wakil, lexicologically, refers to a person who has been given a task to do. To take Allah as guardian means that all matters and affairs should be entrusted to Allah. Technically, this is called tawakkul, trust. The Holy Prophet is given several injunctions in this surah. This is the fifth injunction. Imam Yaqub Karkai says that from the beginning of the surah up to this verse, there is reference to the makamat sulab, journeying or methodical traveling along the spiritual path through the various states and stations, under the direction of a spiritual master or adept. The references are as follows: 1. Solitude at night to worship Allah. 2. Preoccupation with Quran. 3. Constant remembrance of Allah. 4. Severance of relationship with everything other than Allah. And 5. Total trust in Allah. Preceding the last injunction about trust, Allah's attribute is given. Thus, He is the Lord of the East and the West. Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 9. In other words, Allah is the cherisher and sustainer of the entire universe. He is responsible to fulfill the needs of all from the beginning to the end. He alone can assist in all matters. Just as He has been singled out for worship, so should He be singled out for reliance, and full trust must be put in Him. Anyone who trusts and relies on Allah will never be deprived of his needs, as the Quran puts it, and whoever places his trust in Allah, He is sufficient for him. Surah Talaq, Ayah 3. The correct concept of tawakkul, trust. Trust in Allah does not imply for anyone to avoid the apparent means of acquiring livelihood, or giving up the normal ways of saving oneself from any affliction. The ways and means that Allah has created for a particular purpose should not be abandoned while placing total trust in Allah. On the contrary, in order to achieve our purpose, it is necessary for us to utilize the God-given power and causes at our disposal to the fullest extent, but we should not repose blind faith in material causes and means. But having adopted actions of choice, the result should then be left with Allah, whose will is the ultimate cause of everything. The Holy Prophet himself has explained tawakkul in this way. Imam Mikhawi in his Surahs, Sunnah, and Bayhaqi in his Shu al-Iman have cited the following hadith: Jibril has inspired me with the thought that no person will ever die until he receives in full his sustenance that Allah has decreed for him. Therefore fear Allah and be moderate in your search. In other words, we should not be over-absorbed in quest for our needs so deeply that the attention of the heart is totally focused on the material causes and means. Instead, after adopting the ways and means to fulfill our needs, we should repose our total trust in and reliance upon Allah in the sense that without His will, no cause can bring any effect. From it he transmits a hadith on the authority of Sayyid Abu Dihar al-Ghifari that the Holy Prophet said, Zuhd, renunciation of the world, does not mean to turn lawful things into unlawful or squander the wealth Allah has given you. Renunciation of the world means to have more faith in the things that are in Allah's hands than what are in your hands. Majari.
And be patient over what they say, and avoid them with gracious avoidance.
And bear patiently what they say, and part with them in a beautiful manner. Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 10, according to Imam Karki, may Allah have mercy on him. This is the sixth injunction given to the Holy Prophet, that he should bear with patience and fortitude the jibes, opposition and persecution of his enemies. Perfect patience is the supreme station of suluk, methodical traveling along the spiritual path. Spiritual reformers expend their entire strength, energy and life in reforming the deviant people. In return, they have to hear vile language, they are persecuted and wronged in many different ways. In return, they exercise sabr, patience, in a beautiful manner. In other words, they do not even entertain the thought of revenge. This is the supreme station, which in Sufi terminology is attained only after a camel, complete negation of selfish desires. And part with them in a beautiful manner. Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 10. The word hajar literally denotes to give up something in a state of grief, anger, and temper. The verse means that rejectors of truth utter words that hurt. He should not take revenge, but maintain no relations with them either. At the time of severing relations, it is natural for man to utter words of complaint and disgust. Therefore Allah's messenger is told to cut off relations with the rejectors of truth, but he must maintain his dignity and integrity. Hence, the verse contains the grammatically restricted cognate accusative, hadran jamalan, in a beautiful manner. The high status and the exalted standard of character require that the Holy Prophet should restrain himself from making any abusive remarks at the deniers of truth. Some scholars of Tafsir say that the injunction of this verse is repealed by verses of jihad which were revealed later on, but a careful analysis indicates that the injunction is not repealed. The above verses enjoin patience and steadfastness in the face of what the enemies say and cutting off from them courteously. This is not in conflict with verses that deal with reproof, punishment, and armed struggle that were revealed subsequently. The injunction of this verse is applicable at all times and under all circumstances, whereas jihad is reproof and punishment, and is a specific injunction to be applied under specific conditions. Islamic jihad and armed struggle is not a matter of taking revenge or expression of anger, which could be in conflict with patience and fortitude or courteous severance. It is purely acting on the divine command, as is patience and courteous severance under general circumstances. Up to this point, the Holy Prophet was commanded to be steadfast and to abstain from revenge. The next verse reprimands the deniers of truth that instead of being grateful to Allah for ease and plenty provided for them, they reject the divine message.
And leave me with the matter of the deniers, those of ease in life, and allow them respite a little.
And leave me to deal with the deniers, the people of luxury, and give them respite for a while. Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 11. The deniers are referred to as the people of luxury. The word nama, the first letter in bearing laugh equals it signifies ease and plenty, abundance of wealth and children. This indicates that people who live a life of ease, plenty, and luxury can only be the ones who deny the hereafter. These things do often fall to the lot of the believers, but they do not intoxicate them. Therefore, even when they live a life of luxury, their hearts are never at any time empty of the thought of the hereafter. Only the deniers of the hereafter will live a life of luxury that is neglectful of the hereafter.
Indeed, with us for them are shackles and burning fire.
Surely with us are fetters and flaming fire, and food that chokes, and a painful punishment. Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 12-13. The terrible punishment of the hereafter is described in these verses. First, there is the mention of ankle, which is the plural of nakel. It denotes fetter, chain, shackle. Then there is the mention of flaming fire. Then Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 13 describes the choking food the inmates of hell will be given to eat. The word gussa literally denotes a thing by which one is choked. For example, a morsel may block the throat in such a way as it can neither be swallowed nor can it be brought up. The inmates of hell will be given bari and zakwan, thorny fruits, to eat. These fruits fit the description. Say, Ibn Ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with him, said, and it will be thorns of fire that will choke. God save us.
And food that chokes and a painful punishment.
The verse says in conclusion, and a painful punishment. Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 13, having described specific forms of punishment, This description is general, indicating that there will be many more horrible and terrible forms of punishment which man cannot even imagine. O Allah, save us from all forms of punishment. The righteous elders fear of the hereafter. Imam Ahmad, Ibn Abi Dawud, Ibn Adi and Bayhaqi record a narration that a person heard this verse and fell fainted. One day Hassan al-Basri, may Allah have mercy on him, was fasting. When the food was brought to him at the time of iftar, ending the fast, this verse occurred in his mind and he could not eat. As a result, he sent it away. The following day he was fasting again. The same thing happened in the evening and he sent the food away. On the third day the same thing happened. So his sons went to Thabit bin Nani, Yazid Dab, and Yahya al-Baka and recounted the story. All three personalities went to Hassan and insisted on his eating something. At their insistence, the latter ate a little. Rolma Annie.
On the day the earth and the mountains will convulse, and the mountains will become a heap of sand pouring down.
On the day when the earth and the mountains will quake, and the mountains will turn into a slipping heap of sand. 14. We have sent to you a messenger as a witness over you, just as we sent a messenger to Pharaoh the Pharaoh. 15. Then Pharaoh disobeyed the messenger, so we seized him with a severe seizure. 16. So, if you disbelieve, how will you save yourself from a day that will turn the small boys into gray-headed old men? These verses describe the horrors and terrors of the day of resurrection. Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 14 describes that the punishment will take place on the day when the earth and mountains will shake, and the mountains will be reduced to a heap of dust or shifting dunes. Thereafter, reference is made to the story of Musa and Pharaoh in order to threaten the pagans of Makkah. Allah sent a messenger, Muhammad, to bear witness against the pagans of Makkah, just as he sent a messenger, Musa, to Pharaoh. But Pharaoh disobeyed Musa and Allah seized him with terrible severity right in this world. Likewise, if the pagans of Makkah persist stubbornly in their pagan conduct, they too can be seized similarly with terrible severity in this very world. Towards the conclusion, the verse says that if no torment is inflicted in this world, no one can escape the horrors and terrors and length of the day of resurrection that will turn the children gray. This could be a metaphor for the most calamitous happenings which bring about disastrous changes. But some scholars say that this is a description of reality, in that the day of resurrection will be so long that a little child will grow old. Ra.
Indeed, we have sent to you a messenger as a witness upon you, just as we sent to Pharaoh a messenger.
See Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 14, for the Tafsir.
But Pharaoh disobeyed the messenger, so we seized him with a ruinous seizure.
See Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 14, for the Tafsir.
Then how can you fear, if you disbelieve, a day that will make the children white-haired?
See Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 14, for the Tafsir.
The heaven will break apart therefrom, ever is his promise fulfilled.
See Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 14, for the Tafsir.
Indeed, this is a reminder, so whoever wills may take to his Lord a way.
See Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 14, for the Tafsir.
Indeed, your Lord knows, O Muhammad, that you stand in prayer almost 2/3 of the night, or half of it, or 1/3 of it, and so do a group of those with you. And Allah determines the extent of the night and the day. He has known that you Muslims will not be able to do it, and has turned to you in forgiveness. So recite what is easy for you of the Quran. He has known that there will be among you those who are ill and others traveling throughout the land, seeking something of the bounty of Allah, and others fighting for the cause of Allah. So recite what is easy from it, and establish prayer, and give zakah, and loan Allah a goodly loan. And whatever good you put forward for yourselves, you will find it with Allah. It is better and greater in reward. And seek forgiveness of Allah. Indeed, Allah is forgiving and merciful.
The obligatory nature of Tahajjud prayer abrogated. At the beginning of the surah, the command stand at night for prayer prescribed the night prayer for Allah's Messenger as well as for the general body of Muslims. It was also obligatory for the prayer to be long, but they had a choice in its length. They had to pray for half the night, or 1/3 of the night, or 2/3 of the night. A group of noble companions in the performance of this duty mostly followed the Azimah, preferred original rule of law. As a result, they spent almost 2/3 of the night in prayer. They performed this prayer every night. During the day, they would invite people to Islam and preach and attend to their personal needs. Most of the companions were either laborers or businessmen. The messengers as well as the companions' feet would swell on account of the long prayers. Waking at night was extremely difficult, and Allah was fully aware of the entire setup, but it was pre-decreed in His knowledge that the difficulty is temporary and a passing phase. The purpose of this exercise is the ascetic discipline of the Holy Prophet and his companions. In the initial stages, they were in a condition of disequilibrium. Therefore, they were required to exert themselves in spiritual struggle and ascetic discipline. Thus, we are going to send down to you a witty discourse. Surah Al-Muzzammil, Ayah 5. The Holy Prophet was going to be handed over the service of the Qur'an, which is much more difficult than this ascetic discipline. According to the pre-eternal knowledge of Allah, when the ascetic discipline was completed, and with His grace perfect balance was attained, asceticism was replaced by moderation. As a result, the obligatory nature of night prayer was repealed. According to Ibn Abbas, the above verses merely cancelled the obligatory nature of night prayer, but the basic tahajjud prayer remained intact as obligatory. When the 5 daily prayers were prescribed on the night of Mi'raj, the obligatory nature of tahajjud prayer too was cancelled. And Allah knows best. Apparently, this obligation was cancelled for Allah's Messenger as well as for the entire Ummah. However, it is still a supererogatory and laudable deed in the sight of Allah. Furthermore, there is no time or recitation constraint. Every person may perform the prayer according to his own ability in the time available to him and recite the Quran as much of it as is easy for him. The concept of abrogation in Sharia, legislating laws and abrogating them to proclaim new ones in their place, is a routine practice in human governments and institutions. However, abrogation occurs sometimes in a piece of human legislation because the legislators did not fully comprehend the situation at the time of formulating a certain law, and are forced to amend it when they realize that the situation has changed and the law is no longer applicable in the new circumstances. At other times, a law might be proclaimed in the government gazette in keeping with the prevailing circumstances, but the legislators might not have foreseen that the circumstances might change. When that happens, the old law will have to be repealed and a new one will have to be legislated and promulgated. It is inconceivable that these two forms of repeal will ever apply to divine injunctions. At the third situation is that when the legislator formulates a law, he foresees that in time to come conditions will change. As a result, the law will no longer apply in toto in the changed condition. So, when the conditions alter, as the legislator had foreseen, he legislates a new law and makes it public as he had forethought. This is the only form of abrogation that can take place, and has been taking place in divine injunctions. It has always been the case that a certain piece of divine law was intended, from the very beginning, to remain in force for a limited time, but divine wisdom chose not to disclose this time limit from the people. Because of the general wordings of the legislation, the general community of people thought it was an immutable law, whereas Allah had pre-decreed it as a temporary law for a limited period of time. When its temporary period was over, the law was withdrawn. People took this as the abrogation of law, whereas in reality, it merely defined the time period. In other words, at that time it is made publicly known to the VS people that the law was not an immutable one, but promulgated for a limited period of time. Thus the period is now over and the law is no longer applicable. There are many verses of the Quran that have been repealed, and where the commoners find it difficult to grasp the wisdom underlying the repeal. Holy Prophet. The word nafila literally denotes additional, meaning additional obligation. But according to the overwhelming majority, the correct view is that the obligatory nature of tahajjud prayer has been abrogated for Allah's Messenger, as well as the general body of Muslims. However, it still remains an act of supererogation for all. The above verse contains the phrase X5, Ali nafilat, and lack an additional prayer for you. The word nafila is used in its technical sense of nafil supererogatory. If tahajjud is a nafil prayer for all, then it is not clear why addressing the Holy Prophet, the verse adds lack for you as if it is a distinctively voluntary act for the Holy Prophet. Please see Maarif-ul-Qur'an Vol. 5/pp for fuller explanation, especially pp for whether tahajjud is a mere nafil, voluntary, or son of Makkah, emphasized practice of the Holy Prophet. The verse that abrogates the obligatory nature of tahajjud prayer starts from Your Lord knows Surah Al-Muzzammil ayah 20 and ends it now. Recite as much of the Quran as is easy for you. Surah Al-Muzzammil ayah 20. This verse was revealed 1 year or 8 months after the initial verses of the surah. Thus the obligatory nature of night prayer was abrogated after a year. Musnad of Ahmad, Muslim, Abu Dawud, Ibn Majah and Nasai record a narration of Sayyidah Isha, who stated that at the commencement of this surah, Allah had prescribed the night prayer. The Messenger of Allah and the blessed companions constantly and consistently carried out the obligation for a year. Allah held back the last part of the surah in the sky for 12 months. It was revealed after a year, which abrogated the obligatory status of night prayer and made concession, reducing its status to supererogation. Rule, Manani. He knows that you cannot do it regularly. Surah Al-Muzzammil ayah 20. The word ayat literally denotes to count. Some commentators interpret this verse as follows. Allah had not fixed the exact time for night prayer. They were given the option of choosing time between 1/3 of the night to 2/3 of it. But when the companions were preoccupied with the prayer, it was difficult for them to calculate whether they had stayed up half the night, or 1/3 of the night, or 2/3 of the night, because in those days there were no watches or clocks to measure the time. Even if there were, it was not in keeping with their conditions of involvement in prayers to look at the time repeatedly. They would be absorbed in their prayers so as to be oblivious to their environment. This is the significance of the phrase lan tusu. Other scholars say that the word aitsa connotes the act of counting, signifying that Allah knows that you will not be able to keep count of the constant prayers during the lengthy hours and hours of sleep. The word aitsa is also used in this sense, as is used in a hadith in connection with the beautiful names of Allah. Thus, he who keeps count of them will enter paradise, meaning to act fully according to the attributes and qualities of Allah, as indicated in His beautiful names. For fuller explanation, please see Maarif-ul-Qur'an, Vol. 550 under the following verse. And if you count the bounties of Allah, you cannot count them all. Surah Ibrahim, ayah 34. Therefore He turned to you in mercy. Surah Al-Muzzammil, ayah 20. The word tawbah originally means to turn. Repentance for sins is also called tawbah in Arabic because the sinner turns away from his past sins and crimes. In this context, the word simply means to turn, that is, Allah took back the obligatory nature of the injunction of night prayer. Then He says, now, recite as much of the Quran as is easy. Surah Al-Muzzammil, ayah 20, that is, recite in tahajjud prayer, which is no longer obligatory. It is supererogatory, enjoying the status of sunnah or mustahab. No particular number of verses has been fixed for recitation of the Holy Quran in tahajjud prayer, so a worshipper may recite as much of it as is easy for him. This verse answers many legal questions that are available in books of jurisprudence, and establish salah and pay zakat in advance to Allah goodly loan. Surah Al-Muzzammil, ayah 20. According to majority of the commentators, salah in this context refers to the 5 prescribed prayers that were made obligatory on the night of ascent, Mi'raj. This indicates that the night prayer was obligatory for a year. In the meantime, the nocturnal journey took place, and the 5 daily prayers were prescribed. After that, the above verses were revealed, and the obligatory nature of tahajjud prayer was abrogated. Towards the conclusion of the surah, where it speaks of establishment of prayer, it refers to the 5 prescribed prayers. Ibn Kathir, Qatu, Buy and Albar rule, Muvit, and pay zakah. Surah Al-Muzzammil, ayah 20. Zakah refers to the prescribed zakah. However, it is popularly understood that zakah was prescribed 2 years after migration to Medina, whereas this verse is Makki, and, as was said earlier, a consensus of scholarly opinion assigns the revelation of the surah to the earliest period of the call. In response, some commentators expressed the view that this particular verse was revealed in Medina. Ibn Kathir, however, says that zakah was prescribed in the earliest days of Islam, although its details, like exemption limit and the rate, were fixed in the 2nd year of migration at Medina. Even if the verse is treated as Makki, there should be no problem in taking the word zakah in its technical sense of prescribed zakah as Al-Ma'ani explains in detail. Its full analysis will be found in this author's booklet entitled Nizmi Zakat, and Advance to Allah, a Goodly Loan. Surah Al-Muzzammil, ayah 20. In other words, spend in the way of Allah as charitable donations. This would be as if one is advancing a loan to Allah, who will multiply it many times and reward him most abundantly. This indicates divine favor and grace towards him, and it also describes that Allah is the richest of all. The loan will not be lost, but will be richly returned. The command for zakat has already been mentioned previously. Therefore, advancing a loan to Allah refers, according to most scholars, to other voluntary charitable donations in the cause of Allah as, for instance, spending on friends and relatives or utilizing for entertainment of guests, or investing in the service of scholars and righteous people. Some scholars point out that besides the prescribed zakah, there are other financial obligations imposed on man, such as maintenance of parents, wife and children. Thus the command to pay zakah in verse Surah Al-Muzzammil, ayah 20 covers the injunction of paying out the prescribed zakah, while other financial obligations are covered by the words, advance to Allah a goodly loan 20. Whatever good you will send ahead for your own selves, Surah Al-Muzzammil, ayah 20. In other words, if man does good in his lifetime, it is better for him than advising someone else to do the good deed at the time of his death. This advice for doing good on behalf of the deceased includes financial worship and voluntary charitable donations. It also includes prescribed prayers, fasts and other prescribed worship or duties that were missed out or neglected. It is better to pay out the fidya and sihr or kafara with one's own hands while he is living and be absolved of the responsibility rather than expecting the heirs to discharge it. They may do it or they may neglect to do it. The Messenger of Allah once asked the blessed companions, which of you holds his wealth to be dearer to himself than the wealth of his heirs? They replied, O Allah's Messenger, there is not a single one of us who does not hold his wealth to be dearer to himself than the wealth of his heir. Allah's Messenger then said, consider carefully what you are saying. They submitted, this is indeed our considered opinion. We do not know any better. He then said, the wealth of one of you is only that which he sends forth, and the wealth of his heir is that which he leaves behind. Ibn Kathir from Abu Yala al-Masali and said Al-Bukhari transmitted it, reporting from Hafs ibn Giyath and so on.